Welcome back, World Ablaze listeners. Today I'm flying solo. I do not have a guest. And I want to inform everybody that I'm going to be doing more of these solo episodes. Reason being, I love my guests, love talking to them. I have a very wide interest. And everybody loves hearing from a subject matter expert. Problem is, with the show lately is I feel that I haven't been able to touch on current events, things that are going on geopolitically, especially when it involves the United States of America. Everything that really is the reason why I started the show, I felt like I was kind of getting away from it. So what we're going to start doing moving forward, we're going to do more solo episodes, which is just me talking. And then I'm going to sprinkle in the guest episodes because that's not going to stop. I'm just going to space it out more and add more balance to the show. With all that being said, let's just get on with it, right? Oh, and one more thing. Before we move on, for anybody, you're going to notice a little bit of changes, especially if you're watching on video. You can see I move things around. I now got a background, probably displaying my wonderful champagne bottles, some of my favorites here. You're going to notice that the camera is not so much in your face anymore. There's a lot more light, so you can actually see me. So we did that. And also, new logo. If you're looking and you're watching this, I am pointing right at that thing. Now, that is not the entire logo. The entire logo actually has this new World Ablaze mark up here with me standing next to it. But this logo right here is the core of it. So if you see it pull up on your podcast aggregator, Apple, Spotify, whatever, and you see that, yes, that is World Ablaze. That is me. We're just trying to make it so that when you see the logo, it correlates a lot better to what it is the show is about. Hence why you see the Republican and Democrat mascots there, being the elephant and the donkey, the world on fire. You got some bullets in it. So it just aligns more with what the content is that I am delivering. Okay, that being said, we're going to go ahead and discuss today the Israel-Hamas peace deal, or we can more aptly name it the Trump peace deal. We're also going to talk about Antifa, a terrorist organization. Well, many will argue they're not even an organization. They're just a amalgamation of decentralized groups that come together organized to protest, and they protest under the same direction and messaging and likeness, logo. Yeah, we're going to discuss that because, are they an organization? I'll get to that. And I'm also going to discuss a sensitive topic here. Let's talk about white pride. All right, don't shut me off. Hold on. Hold on. More specifically, what it means to celebrate your heritage as a white person. Because no matter what anybody on social media says, no matter what these influencers try to tell you, white, the skin color, is actually made up of many different cultures or ethnicities. You see, the color of your skin is not a race. It's just the color of your skin. And so I'm going to dive into that a little bit and why you should be proud to celebrate your heritage or ethnicity, and you shouldn't be shamed into not wanting to do so just because your skin color is like mine, which is white. Doesn't make any sense. Before we get to the show, though, I haven't done this in a while. I got the good shit with me. That's right. For those watching, it is a ye old bottle of whiskey. Well, more specifically, bourbon, because it's American. I'm going to pour this into my coffee because I am recording. Let me look down over here. Yep, it is October 14th, and it is 6:45. And I had a long day, so I need the pick-me-up, but I also need the, I need the upper and the downer, I guess. So I'm going to pour this in my cup here. All right, enough of that. Good shit. And what I'm going to do is what I haven't done in a long time. I'm going to give everybody a shout out. I'm going to cheers to you. So everybody who's getting off work, going to work, doesn't want to be at work, has to work, stayed home, whatever the case. I got America's Cup here for anybody watching. I've been using this pretty consistently. So here's America's Cup. There's my coffee with my whiskey. Cheers to everybody. Yep. God damn, that's good. Okay. On with the show. So I'm going to pull up on my screen over here my first set of tabs. There we are. And let me go ahead. And for everybody watching, I just want you to know that I don't have a lot of videos, but at least you can see what's happening because I'm going to do a lot of reading from various sources and data. And for those who are listening, this might be slightly more maybe boring than usual on my solo episodes because I usually pack a lot of clips, a lot of audio clips, a lot of media that you can hear, which kind of like, changes things up. So unfortunately, you're just going to hear me talking a lot on this one. Apologize if that gets a little boring for you. You can break this episode up, but I encourage everybody to watch the video. You can watch the video. It'll be out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. Obviously, just look for World Ablaze with George Fonts. Same thing on Rumble. And I will also upload the video on Spotify. So if you listen to me on Spotify, I have been putting the video episodes on there as well. So you have that option. Let me switch over to this screen. I want everybody to see this. For those who are watching, I want everybody to see this here. So this plan, this peace plan, wasn't just thrown together. This has been in the works for a while. There were multiple attempts for a ceasefire and peace plan agreement. And more to the point, to just give it a rest over there between Israel and Hamas. And more importantly, there have been multiple attempts to not just stop people from shooting at each other and killing each other, but to exchange the hostages, those that are captured on both sides. The hostages that Israel has, the hostages that Hamas has, which never happened. Hamas kept putting it off. So this has been going on. There was an attempt in January. There's February. I think it was March or May. There's been multiple attempts this year alone. And here we are in October. And it seems like we finally have a deal. Like something's actually happened. And Trump is the one that gets the credit. Although many people on the left, Democrats, are trying to claim that no. This had nothing to do with Trump. This started with Biden. He's just riding off Biden's coattails. Well, look, I don't want to make this an anti-Biden show, but if you've been paying attention, Biden hasn't done anything during his entire reign with his administration, geopolitically, to put a stop to anything outside of fumbling our pull out of Afghanistan. But outside of that, he didn't do anything for the Ukraine situation, did nothing for the Israel-Hamas situation. Those things were addressed by Trump thus far. And with this Israel-Hamas situation, this peace deal, it seems like the U.S. is finally getting involved. And so for those who don't want to give him credit, what's important here isn't the fact that it is Trump. I'm sure Trump would disagree with me, but what's important to me in this whole thing is America finally stepping up and doing what America does. And that is trying to make things right, trying to be the leader of the world. Doesn't mean we always come across and do the job well, but we usually try to step up and try to broker peace. We do the best we can. We are absolutely not perfect. So I hope anyone who's hearing this from another country, because I do have many listeners around the world, just bear in mind, I understand we're not perfect. But America is doing what America usually does well. And right now, what's important is it doesn't matter if this was Trump. It doesn't matter if it was Biden. It wouldn't even matter if it was Clinton. I really don't care. What matters is America stepped up and made this happen. But it was done under Trump's presidency, so don't know what to tell you guys. He gets the credit. So this outline here that you can see on the screen, see my cursor moving around here, this plan was a 20-point plan. It wasn't just a haphazard plan that was just thrown together. I'm not going to read every single point here, but I'm going to scroll down, starting at 9, because this is where it gets interesting. To me, this is the meat and potatoes of the entire plan here. So bear with me. I'll do my best to condense or only read parts of this that make the point. But let me start with number 9. So number 9, and this is from the 20-point plan for this deal between Israel and Hamas. So, number 9, Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for the people in Gaza. This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump, with other members and heads of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. This body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until such time as the Palestinian Authority has completed its reform program as outlined in various proposals. So, very important here that the governing body will involve actual Palestinians, qualified Palestinians. And as I read on in some of these other points, you're going to understand that qualification mainly being Hamas is not involved at all, anywhere. I like how they're going to have a governing body made up of many different people. Donald Trump will be overseeing it. So this is an attempt to create balance to the situation, to create, checks and balances, really more to the point, the situation when it comes to governing the people right now. And it's not the attempt of Trump or this body to oversee the people in the sense that they're going to make sure they do what this governing body wants to do. The intent is for the Palestinians to rule themselves, but to do so without the Hamas terrorist group rooted into their political structure and becoming exactly what it is that got them here in the first place. Okay, so let's go to point number 10. A Trump economic development plan to rebuild and energize Gaza will be created by convening a panel of experts who have helped birth some of the thriving modern miracle cities in the Middle East. Very important. So they're going to rebuild. They're going to give them an economic structure that will be the springboard to success. So there is an investment in trying to make Gaza self-sufficient and to make sure that they can stand on their own. Basically, I'm saying the same thing twice, right? Self-sufficient, stand on their own. But you get what I'm saying. We want them to stand on their own economically. We want them to be able to manage and run themselves for the people, by the people. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a democracy, so to speak. I mean, there's many different types of governing bodies. There's different types of governances. The Middle East in general, they're not necessarily democratic, but we don't know where this is going to go. Either way, it doesn't matter. What matters is we're going to put the Palestinians first. The Palestinian people are going to manage themselves, which is exactly the way it should be. Point number 11. A special economic zone will be established with preferred tariff and access rates to be negotiated with participating countries. So it looks like this body is going to work on behalf of Palestine to make sure that they're being tariffed fairly, that the cost of goods coming into Palestine from various countries is also fair and makes sense for the Palestinians so that they can enter the global trade market. They can go ahead and purchase. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to be selling goods as well, exporting. I'm sure they will be. I mean, that's part of any successful independent state's economic plan. But this ensures that they are not cut off. This ensures that they are not left to find whatever source that they can, because this takes the control of goods and services into Gaza away from Israel. And this is important because Israel, while they left Gaza in 2005, let's just be honest, they haven't occupied Gaza for some time. They left it to the Palestinians to run. Hamas got involved, turned it to shit. That's just what it is. You may not like what I just said, but that's the truth. So the reality is, this plan thus far does put Palestine first. It puts the Palestinian people first and allows them to get supplies from other sources uninhibited by Israel. So this is a good thing. Number 12, no one will be forced to leave Gaza. Now, this is important. No one will be forced to leave. Nobody. The plan is for the people of Gaza, the Palestinians in Gaza, to remain in Gaza, to live in Gaza, to live in a prosperous Gaza. And that is the point. So no one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so. Right now, they're not. Look, the southern border of Gaza is highly secured by Egypt, and everything else Israel is securing. They can't even go out into the ocean because that is also managed and secured by Israel. So, and Egypt as well. So this will allow Palestinians or Gazans to freely enter and re-enter their own state. Now, I don't know if this is a recognized state yet. Nothing in here has said that Palestine is recognized as a state. So I'm not sure what will be the exact designation of Palestine, but they keep referring to Gaza. So either way, they're going to be able to leave and return freely. They're going to be able to purchase goods from other countries unrestricted at fair rates and fair tariffs. They're going to be able to manage and rule themselves, govern themselves. Very important. All right, so let's go to number 13. This is the other very important point here. Hamas and other factions agree to not have any role in the governance of Gaza. None. Hamas is done. Like, you cannot have a say in anything that has to do with governing the Palestinian people or the Gazans. So again, let me read that. Hamas and other factions agree to not have any role in the governance of Gaza, directly, indirectly, or in any form. All military terror and offensive infrastructure, including tunnels, weapons, production facilities, will be destroyed, and they will not be rebuilt. There will be a process of demilitarization of Gaza under the supervision of independent monitors, which will include placing weapons permanently beyond use through an agreed process of decommissioning. So there will be there will be an effort to just remove Hamas completely. They will not be part of the governing body. They're not going to be part of the military. They're not going to be part of any of it. That is a very important condition for all this to work. Will Hamas leave willingly? I don't know. It's yet to be seen. The ceasefire and deal has already been underway. They've already exchanged hostages. Sorry for that flub there. Starting to get a little dry mouth. Excuse me. Take a sip. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, guys. They've already exchanged hostages. And there is a multi-phase part to this plan. So all these 20 points are condensed and separated into, I believe it's 3 phases, and I'll go over that next. But let's go ahead and read point 14. This is another important point. A guarantee will be provided by regional partners to ensure that Hamas and the factions comply with their obligations and that New Gaza poses no threat to its neighbors or its people. Its neighbors is not just Israel. That also includes Egypt. That also includes Jordan. Basically includes the entire Middle East for the most part, except for, I don't know where Iran is with this, but regardless. Point 15, the United States will work with Arab and international partners to develop a temporary international stabilization force, or the ISF, to immediately deploy in Gaza. So it sounds like the United States and various Arab nations will be working together to deploy to Gaza so that they can police this area and make sure that Hamas doesn't raise its ugly head, that the terrorist organizations are stamped out and they're not going to be able to influence or rule over the people that are just trying to live. So that is very important right there. The force will be the long-term internal security solution. It says here that the ISF will train and provide support to vetted Palestinian police forces in Gaza and will consult with Jordan and Egypt, who have extensive experience in this field. The ISF will work with Israel and Egypt to help secure border areas, along with newly trained Palestinian police forces. So there's going to be an actual vetted Palestinian police force. There's going to be the United States and Arab nations involved in this transitioning. It will be a joint policing of the borders that also involves this new Gazan police force, which is very important. So this puts the security control in the hands of the Gazans. And with Jordan's involvement, that's a plus, because now you have another person from the outside that's not necessarily controlling the borders already. So you got Israel controls the border, you got Egypt controlling the borders. Jordan will be that outside independent state that will be able to help oversee and direct that, as well as involving Gaza's own newly put together and vetted police force. Very important. Okay, so this here might piss off a lot of pro-Israel people, but I think this is very much needed. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. I want to repeat that. They will not. Okay, Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. President Donald J. Trump is putting his foot down and saying, you're not doing this. You're not taking more land. You're not going to take Gaza over. You're done. Period. That strip goes to the Gazans or Palestinians. So, with that being said, as the ISF establishes control and stability, the Israel Defense Force, sorry about that, guys. My mouth is sticking right now. The Israel Defense Forces will withdraw based on standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization that will be agreed upon between the IDF, ISF, the guarantors, and the United States, with the objective of a secure Gaza that no longer poses a threat to Israel, Egypt, or its citizens. Particularly or practically, the IDF will progressively hand over the Gaza territory it occupies to the ISF, according to an agreement they will make with a transitional authority until they are withdrawn completely from Gaza. So Israel is to withdraw completely. No more presence, period. None. They're supposed to pull back all the way to the borders. And this new independent security force is gonna go ahead and help police and monitor the pull out of Israel of the IDF from Gaza, and they're going to remain and help train and put into existence, into action, the actual Gazan police force. Okay, so very important here. And I'm going to read 17 and then we're going to move on. So 17, in the event Hamas delays or rejects this proposal, the above, including the scaled up aid operation, will proceed in the terror-free areas handed over from the IDF to the ISF. So even if Hamas does whatever they can in their power to fight this, to try and basically tear this whole thing down, make sure that this agreement becomes defunct, we're still going to provide the aid that is needed to the Gazans in the areas that are terror-free. Now, the way that's worded is smart because that puts the policing really in the hands of the Gazans. That puts the pressure on Hamas because now it's going to be very clearly evident that no, aid is getting there. We are trying, but it's only going to be able to be delivered to the terror-free zones. Well, who's going to fight back and make sure those zones are terror-free? The people of Gaza. They're going to have to rise up and they're going to have to take control and they're going to have to send Hamas a message. You are no longer wanted. We don't want you here. And your presence is a detriment to our existence, period. So let's go through the phases real quick. So there's a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Let me share my screen again. So phase 1, there's an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian action. So the plan mandates an immediate ceasefire and cessation of hostilities with all military operations suspended and front lines frozen. Okay. All Israeli hostages, alive and deceased, will be returned within 72 hours. Palestinian prisoners will be released, including 250 life sentence prisoners and 1,700 individuals arrested since the war began. For every Israeli hostage whose remains are released, Israel will release the remains of 15 deceased Gazans. So this is a fair exchange of giving each side their people back, living or dead. Very important here. And that's what's happening right now as this episode is being recorded. That is exactly what's happening right now. Phase 2, demilitarization and security measures. Okay, so the proposed strategy includes the destruction of Hamas's offensive weaponry, such as tunnels, military infrastructure, to neutralize their capacity for further violence. The statement says that Gaza will be de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. It also offers amnesty to Hamas members, a temporary international stabilization force composed of U.S., Arab, and European personnel would be deployed to oversee security and facilitate the training of a Palestinian police force, which is what I read earlier. So all that's part of phase 2. Now, the amnesty of Hamas members that commit to a peaceful existence or coexistence, they will have safe passage provided for those opting for exile. So the Hamas people or members who choose to leave, never come back, or exiled from Gaza, they will be free to do so, as long as they commit to do so peacefully and they don't engage in attacks or terror in the area again. So there's the offer. Phase 3, governance and reconstruction. So a transitional administration led by Palestinian technocrats and supervised by an international body is planned to be established in phase 3 to manage day-to-day governance and oversee the rehabilitation of infrastructure. Humanitarian aid is to be delivered without interference with international organizations such as the United Nations, and the Red Crescent, overseeing its distribution to ensure fairness and efficiency. Additionally, efforts are planned to encourage Palestinians to remain in Gaza, offering support to those choosing to stay and rebuild their communities. So again, the aid will continue, humanitarian aid will continue, and will be managed and overseen by the United States and the Red Crescent. And here it is. I was wondering about this. So yeah, I guess this is part of the plan. Recognition of Palestinian statehood. The strategy includes the acknowledgement of Palestine as a state. Okay, so there it is. Contingent upon successful reconstruction efforts and necessary reforms when the Palestinian Authority. Makes sense? To pave the way for long-term peace, a dialogue would be initiated between Israel and the Palestinians to establish a political framework that promotes peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding. Although the plan recognizes the Palestinian state as a possibility, that is the aspiration of the Palestinian people, it does not say that the United States would recognize Palestine as a state. Okay, so, all right. So, there's a possibility of recognizing Palestine as a state with the U.S.'s involvement, but at the end, it states that it doesn't guarantee the United States will recognize the Palestinians as having a Palestinian state. Interesting. So this is a nod more towards or affirmation of the United States of America's strong commitment to Israel, because Israel does not want a Palestinian state. They have fought that for years. Even though I won't get into it now. You go back to my previous episodes, but a two-state solution has been offered, I mean, throughout the years, more times than I can probably count at this point. But Israel has made it clear that they don't want an independent Palestinian state. But I think it's going to happen. Look, the rest of the world's going to recognize him. Whether or not the United States of America does or not, it's happening. So there's that. Now, with all that being said, let me show you the map here. And this map shows the phases. And for those that are not watching, sorry, you're just going to have to watch the video later. But this shows Gaza. And what you can see here, these lines. So there's a blue line, there's a yellow line, there's the red, and then you have this kind of hash mark, kind of grayed out sort of, area. And so the blue line is representative of the IDF current line of control. And as if you're watching, I mean, it really just pushes the people back. It pretty much imposes on Gaza fairly heavily. Now, the yellow line here is where the initial withdrawal will be. So that's where the IDF pulls back. That's where the hostage exchanges start happening. This red line is the second withdrawal. So this is when the ISF mobilized per standards set in Trump plan. So once the ISF is in place, according to Trump's plan, they are going to pull back to this red line here. Okay. And then this hash grayed out type area here, that's going to be the new borders that are set. That or actually, this will be the area of securing the border. So this will be the secure buffer zone, basically. And it's actually what it says, secure buffer zone. Okay. So this third withdrawal is where the buffer zone will be established. All right. So this is not this is not a thrown together plan. So far, it's working. For how long? I don't know. None of us know. I mean, there hasn't been peace in the Middle East for eons. Just when you think things are starting to get better, someone else pops off. So, example, right now, no one's talking about it, and I'm not going to talk about it into detail right now or in detail, but, Pakistan is fighting the Taliban again. So, will there ever be peace in the Middle East? I have no idea. We're hoping this holds. We hope that this deal holds for the sake of the Palestinians, the Gazans. And we really do hope that Hamas is, disbanded, eradicated, exiled, that they're away from the area so they can't keep causing any trouble. Now, with that being said, this was a lot. This is a huge achievement, a huge achievement. Now, the Democrats, though, we can't get the politics out of good deeds, can we? For as much as the Trump administration has done with this, Democrats still couldn't recognize it, still couldn't accept it because it was Trump. And even though that's the case, due to pressures, the Democrats are going to have to change their tune. So here's the hill. On Israel, but very important, on Israel, just Israel, guys, just Israel. On Israel, the Democrats should praise Trump. So out of everything else, we know you hate Trump. We know you hate everything he's done. But on this one, you guys kind of don't have an argument. So when is it going to happen? I don't know. Apparently, nobody thought it was going to happen. Everybody didn't want to admit it. And more to the point on this is, what about all these Free Palestine protesters, these pro-Hamas protesters? What are they going to do now? They have no leg to stand on. Like, what's the reason for organizing their protests at this point now? We got a plan in place. We got a ceasefire. We got hostage exchange. We got a independent body that's going to help the Palestinians get on their own feet. They're going to train their police force. They're going to help them, vet leaders so that they can govern themselves. What else is there to say? Now, due to pressures of articles that were written like The Hill, and I just read the headline, but there are many of these coming out, many of these articles coming out where they're saying there's no way you can't recognize Trump at this point. You got to give him this one. It's too big. It's too big. It was too profound. It was something nobody thought would happen. Here we are. Can't walk away from this one, guys. So, with that being said, looks like through the pressures, some of the largest names in the Democrat Party decide to give a nod to Trump. Here we have, right here from Fox News, Schumer, Clinton lead Democrats praising Trump for Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal. Interesting. So we have Chucky Schumer, we have Bill and, Hillary Clinton. Wow. They're leading a chorus of prominent Democrats praising President Donald Trump for the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal and the release of the remaining living hostages. The support from across the aisle comes as the Gaza-based terrorist group Hamas freed all 20 remaining living hostages held in the Gaza Strip on Monday. Wow, never thought we would see that coming, where Hillary Clinton would be praising Donald Trump. I also read another article where even Kamala Harris spoke up in support of Donald Trump regarding this issue. So, with that being said, what else is going to happen? I mean, look, here's a perfect meme. Let me switch over. Check this out, guys. On X from the account Clandestine, very good account. I'm going to read this here. Trump just ended the war in Gaza, and how do the left respond? They're planning a nationwide anti-Trump No Kings protest this weekend. All the people who have been screaming free Palestine will now be protesting the guy who just freed Palestine. You see, the radical left, the nut jobs, just can't help themselves. Now, I said radical left. I'm not saying everybody who's a Democrat is a nut job, but come on, even the right has nuts, right? So the radical left they just can't help themselves. And this meme is perfect. It has a free Palestine protester holding the Free Palestine sign, and it has President Donald Trump sitting right in front of him, and he's saying, "You're welcome." And the Palestine protesters, in their mind, think to themselves, "Damn it!" Like, now what? What else you got? I don't know. So, as much as everybody does not want to admit it, Trump did good on this one. And while everybody is proud of this moment, the one group that I think we all knew wouldn't comply is Hamas. Hamas. Yeah, unfortunately, while the hostages have been exchanged and while there's a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, it seems like Hamas can't stop the violence and are turning on Gazans. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? Because it wasn't always about Israel. It was about power, period. It was about control. It wasn't about Israel. So I'm going to go ahead and read this off to you. I'm going to show for everybody watching. Here we go. This is from, I never pronounced it correctly. I don't know if it's Reuters, or whatever. So this article, Hamas carries out wave of Gaza killings, citing crime and security concerns. Hamas can't help themselves. Like, did they really want independence? Did they really want freedom? Did they really want peace? Fuck no. They want control. They want power. Hamas faced challenge to its control of Gaza as war progressed. A group kills 32 gang members, so they're calling them gang members, They're really just people who oppose Hamas. So they killed 32 gang members in Gaza City. I don't know what to say. Here's another article here, or articles. So this is from Feedly, which is a news aggregator. And I just typed in Hamas, and you can see this isn't just one publication. This isn't one news outlet that's talking about this. This is happening. Look, what happened in Gaza is a sort of anarchy, as complex issues remain for Israel-Hamas ceasefire. After Trump declares war is over, Hamas executes rivals in Gaza to reassert control. Of course. Here's another one. Hamas crackdown in Gaza leaves dozens dead amid power struggle. Hamas releases all living hostages and Israel frees prisoners under Gaza deal. Okay, so that's a good one. Here's another good one. Couple separated, kidnapped during October 7th by Hamas attack, finally reunited. Great. So we have some good news out of this, right? But the majority of these articles are about how Hamas just can't help themselves and just started killing Gazans. So Euro News right here. Hamas crackdown in Gaza leaves dozens dead amid power struggle. Hamas's operation in Gaza City over the weekend killed 32 people, targeting a rival clan. Despite the ceasefire with Israel, tensions remain high, with multiple skirmishes reported over the past 10 days. So at least 32 people have been killed during Hamas weekend-long crackdown, targeting what the group described as a dangerous gang, just days after the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect in the Strip. Although Hamas did not name its target in Gaza City, multiple media reports claimed it deployed as many as 2,000 of its fighters against Doghmush clan. I know I probably mispronounced that, so I apologize, but you can see it right here, Doghmush. So I don't know if it's Doghmush or Dogmush or whatever, but no disrespect to the clan. Apologies. So, this is what's going on here. So, this is what I understand. Hamas went up against this clan, killed many of the family members of the clan, burned down their houses, buildings, etc. And so when they had the chance, they retaliated against Hamas. They started fighting against them and taking them out. So now that this ceasefire is in place, Israel's pulling out, people are standing up to Hamas. And Hamas is responding by killing people. So is Hamas good for Palestine? Is Hamas good for Gaza? No, not at all. They never were. They came into power. They fooled the people into voting them into power. But once they got the power, they never let it go. They've been controlling the area for many, many years. And this all just proves that they're nothing more than a terrorist organization that is hell-bent on power and control, as I said earlier. They just want power. They want control. And they don't care about what's good for Gaza, what's good for Palestine, what's good for the Palestinians. They're just looking out for themselves. All right, everybody, let's talk Antifa. Excuse me. So, Antifa, what are they? Well, apparently they're a terrorist organization, according to Donald Trump and his administration. But they're nothing more than a group that stands up to fascism, apparently. They're angels. They stand up to white supremacists and neo-Nazi organizations, and they look out for what's right. Well, kinda. Are they an organization? I don't know. Some people say they aren't. What they are is a group made up of multiple decentralized groups that operate independently. Now, they're not an organization, okay, but yet they share the same logo, which is a flag. They communicate so that they can, again, organize, so they can come together in an organized manner, so that they can protest in an organized fashion, and give an organized message and narrative. Interesting. So for as much as they're not an organized organization, there's a lot of organization going on with these decentralized organizations. Yeah, I know. I lost myself on that. So, okay, who are they then? If they're not an organization made up of organizations that organize to do organized things, then what the hell is Antifa? Good question. So, EBSCO.com. I just went down a rabbit hole. I'm not going to go over every tiny detail, by the way. Antifa started in various forms back when they were the people were standing up to Mussolini and Hitler. Okay. And since then, there's been many different faces to Antifa with many different ambitions. So it says here, Antifa, short for anti-fascist, is a decentralized political movement primarily active in the United States that opposes fascism and far-right ideologies. Composed of various groups with no central leadership. So I guess that's the important factor there, right? They don't have any central leadership. I'm going to get to that, though. I'm going to debunk this bullshit here. So Antifa activists engage in direct action, which can range from peaceful protests to confrontational tactics, including property damage and physical altercations. The movement primarily targets groups associated with white supremacy, neo-Nazism, and other forms of extremism. Antifa members are generally left-leaning, with some adhering to far-left ideologies like anarchism and anti-capitalism, but they do not typically align with Democrat Party. So they're not really left, they're far left. They don't align with the Democrat Party because they're anarchists and they don't believe in capitalism. So they're basically anti-US government. That's what it sounds like. So they're an organization that opposes the US government or any government in general. Now, what they said about what they stand up for and against, okay, we don't like white supremacists, they're a hate group. We don't like neo-Nazis, they're a hate group. Understandable. But the other forms of extremism does leave it up to interpretation, meaning at any given time, they can decide that you, because you go to church and you're a Christian, you're a part of a form of extremism because they don't believe in religion and they don't like the Bible and they don't like Christians. So there's that. Everything I just read is a roundabout way of trying to define Antifa by trying to convince you that they are not an organized unit or an organization that carries out organized protests to deliver an organized, focused narrative and message. But it's made up of multiple groups that are all individual organizations that, again, as I said earlier, they all organize together to do organized things. I know, it's weird. It's convoluted. It's strange. Now, just because they don't have a central leadership and they're decentralized does not mean that they are not an organization. Point in case here. American Mafia. The American Mafia, before they were taken down, well, allegedly taken down. Believe me, they're still around. But before they were taken down, they ran in a decentralized way. One of the reasons they were never able to get to the bosses or the heads was because they had these multiple buffers, for one, that protected them from direct contact or put them in direct involvement of anything that was carried out, right? And when they put together the commission was not a central leadership, but it was a meeting of multiple decentralized organizations that got together to meet to decide things for the rest of the group. So again, the American Mafia was set up originally very much how Antifa is set up right now. Decentralized, no central leadership, made up of multiple organizations that act independently, but yet still adhere to a common belief and way of doing things. So they were able to take the American Mafia down due to the RICO statute. Now, I'm not sure if they could do that with Antifa because we're not sure what they do in terms of funding and money, which is one of the ways they were able to get to the mob outside of all the illicit, illegal activities. Antifa does, by nature, practice illicit legal activities, more be on the side of defacement and damage to property, personal property, also federal buildings, etc. And they also engage in physical altercations, not just with other protesters, but also with police. So it looks like they got something here that really does classify them as an organization, and hence why they're a terrorist organization, because they stand up for standing against the government of the United States and much of what the United States stands for. Interesting. So, are they an organization? Sure seems like it. So, this was an AI search I did to compile notable acts of violence by Antifa. And what I did is an AI search. I had AI compile the list, condense it. So I'm going to read some of this. 2017, they're involved in that Charlottesville, Virginia confrontation that did involve white supremacist neo-Nazis as well as them, Antifa. 2017, also Berkeley, California, masked anti-fascist activists clashed with right-wing protesters, which led to arrests and injuries. 2018, Portland, Oregon, clashes and scuffles broke out between anti-fascist and right-wing groups. One video showed an Antifa-aligned individual striking a person with a stick. 2019, Portland, Oregon independent journalist Andy No was attacked by masked Antifa members during a protest. 2019, Tacoma, Washington, a self-proclaimed Antifa supporter, Willem Van Spronsen, attacked an ICE detention facility with a rifle and attempted to ignite a propane tank before being killed by police. And that's pretty violent right there. 2020, during the George Floyd protests and heightened polarization, they were a part of all that as well. They were very present, causing trouble, both nationwide and in Portland, Oregon, specifically. 2021 and beyond, continued confrontations and legal repercussions. So 2021, there was San Diego, California. Several anti-fascist activists were charged and later convicted of their role in a violent riot against pro-Trump supporters in Pacific Beach. 2025, Portland, Oregon, anti-ICE protesters, some allegedly Antifa-affiliated, repeatedly clashed with federal agents at an ICE facility. Arrests were made for assault on federal officers. 2025, Prairieland, Texas. Federal authorities investigated and arrested individuals for an ambush of an ICE facility that injured a police officer. Prosecutors labeled the alleged perpetrators Antifa-aligned violent extremists. And more recently in Portland, part of the anti-ICE protest, there is a sprinkling of Antifa members there. And there were a couple of journalists actually attacked and harassed. I'm talking about being hit in the eye socket with a pipe, being bullied and pushed around, getting in fights. I believe Nick Sorter was on the other end of, he's an independent journalist, by the way, if you don't know who he is, who's on the other end of some of this harassment and I believe physical altercation. So Antifa has a history. And again, this list I read off is not an exhaustive list. This is just like it's just a condensed list. There are many, many, many other instances of them being in altercations, destroying property, and being violent. Antifa, by definition, just based on the things that they do and how they do it, they're a terrorist organization. They've been around for a while. They continue to do the same thing, which is to bully, pressure, and strike fear into their opposition. That's what they do. Do they fight physically? Yes. Do they get violent? Yes. Do they defame and destroy property? Yes. Do they do these things all the time? No. To be fair, no. Now, arguments have been made in favor of Antifa. I was listening to a Chris Cuomo episode of all things, and he was trying to make the case that an attack on Antifa and classifying them as a terrorist organization is an attack on free speech because Antifa is an idea and not an organization. Well, sorry, Christopher Cuomo, but you're fucking wrong. Antifa runs themselves in a manner that the American mafia did. Yeah, they stay decentralized. Sure, there's no central leadership, but they definitely communicate and they do organize. There is a head or leader of each individual organization, decentralized organization, by the way, that operates independently to communicate so that they can organize as a group. And everything they do is like-minded. They have a central way of doing things. So there is a centralized way of doing things, a way of acting, a way of how they protest. It's very organized. There is a handbook somewhere, an unwritten handbook, almost like an employee handbook of how to operate and function. But it's unspoken. It's understood. But that does imply intent to organize and act to do what? Tear down the system. To instill anarchy, to fight capitalism, to fight the government of the United States of America. By almost any means possible, it seems like. So yes, they are an organization. It doesn't matter how you try to explain this away. They're an organization. They have many members, and everyone can say, well, they don't really have members. Well, why do they keep fucking showing up if they're not members? Why? How are they organizing? How do they know how they're going to protest? How do they know what message they're going to be saying? How do they know what narrative they're going to be pushing? You can't fool me. You can't fool anybody. They're obviously an organization. They're obviously a group intent in bringing down the American government. And while they may seem to do some good in the fact that, yeah, they stand up to white supremacists and neo-Nazis, that doesn't excuse everything else that they do and stand for. If they had it their way, the whole world would burn just for the sake of anarchy, so they can live free, well, free in their mind. So the narrative being pushed by the left, even stars like Jimmy Kimmel, who are trying to explain away Antifa and the fact that they don't exist, they're not a real organization, it's just an idea. It's an idea. That's all it is, an idea. Look, Antifa is not a religion. You can call it a political ideology. Great. But it's an ideology that, a large group of people, an organized group of people believe in. A doctrine that they all use and adhere to come together to carry out organized acts of violence and protest. So, is Antifa an organization? Yeah. I have a little something else to show you. Even though Antifa says that they operate with many independent groups and they're not organized, I know it sounds like I'm just beating this damn drum to no end. For those who can see, here's a picture of the many various flags which represent Antifa. And as you can see, they're all the same flag, basically, different colors here and there, but usually it's all a red and black. This red and black one up here on the left-hand corner is their modern flag. The current flag, also this image right here below, that is their current flag. So they come together under the banner of one symbol, carry out organized acts that they all agree on. Interesting. I'd be damned if it's not an organization. It is really starting to sound like an organization. It is really starting to sound like these people got it together. And while Antifa is reported to be primarily in America, that's not true. They have Antifa in France. They got Antifa in the UK. They have Antifa, I believe there is Antifa in Italy. There is Antifa, just sprinkled throughout Europe or the EU. European nations, there's Antifa. There's even Antifa in Canada. These guys are akin to like a biker gang, right? Well, I guess the only difference is you can say like a biker gang has, a central leadership, but they're made up of multiple chapters, just like Antifa, multiple chapters that all operate independently. They all have a common goal. In the case of the biker organizations, is for power, control, and for money. Regardless of how you want to slice it, they're there to make money. Antifa are there to cause chaos and bring down the government and destroy capitalism. Which is funny because they need funding to do what they're doing. There's plenty of videos out there of them with protest supplies, pushing pallets into rented warehouses. For people who don't care about capitalism or maybe even money, they sure seem to be taking advantage of it. So they're kind of akin to a biker gang, or really more how the American mob ran. Decentralized, no real central leadership, all operating under a common belief, a common way of doing things. They communicate to decide and agree on what they're going to do next and how they're going to act. Again, Antifa, they're an organization. And yes, Antifa is a terrorist organization. And I don't think this is an attack on free speech. Free speech doesn't involve all physical altercations. Free speech doesn't involve defacing and destroying property. Free speech doesn't involve your intentional actions being carried out to try to bring down and destroy the American government. Free speech would be, I don't like the government. I don't like my government because of X, Y, Z. There's a difference between talking about it and physically going out there and carrying out an action which is detrimental to those other citizens, those other people living in the United States of America. There is a distinction there. There is a difference. Sure, you can say whatever you want. Say it, shout it. That's fine. But when you start to organize and you start to get physical, you start to get violent, you start to destroy things just for the sake of doing it, to cause panic, to wreak havoc, then it's no longer free speech. You are now intentionally attacking, defaming, and destroying the United States of America. All right. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about white pride. What is it? What does it mean to have pride in being white? Well, for me to answer that question, first, let me preface it with this. If you're proud of your skin color, then we already have a problem. We should be proud of our ethnicity and our culture. But the problem is governments want to classify us by our skin color, not necessarily ethnicity. And when they do so, it's very selective. This got me scratching my head because I went down this rabbit hole and I started asking, well, what is a white person? Like, what does it mean? How do they know that this person is considered white? And why would they just classify a person as white rather than basically what they are ethnically based on their where they come from geographically, right? But instead, we are segregated and we are reported in the data based on the color of our skin. Just as when it comes to crime data, whites versus blacks versus Latinos, etc. But how they group us into these different colors is questionable, for sure. And actually more questionable when you're talking about white people because some of it doesn't make any sense. And so, again, what is a white person? Well, according to the government, I have some explanation on what a white person is, apparently. So what you see here is when I asked this question, I had AI then go ahead and do like the super AI, like Google does. And it searched out through the internet, cross-reference checked, and this is what it came up with. The term white is a social and political construct. So the term white doesn't mean anything, apparently. It's not a descriptor for your skin. It has nothing to do with you as a person being part of a community or a culture. It's just a social and political construct rather than a biological one. Kind of funny because biologically, white people's pigmentation is, well, fair or white, just as a black person's pigmentation is, well, dark or black. Same thing with Latino. They're kind of, they're not white, but they're not black, but they definitely have a darker shade of skin. So biologically, yeah, you can definitely make a correlation between white, black, Latino, or brown, right? But let me read on here. A common thread is ancestry from the original peoples of Europe, but the category has expanded and shifted over time in place like the United States. So again, a common thread for a person being considered white has to do with European ancestry, but the United States has a different way of looking at it. And this is what's confusing because most of the rest of the world followed suit when it came to this. And so historically, the legal and social definition of white in the US has been a tool of social hierarchy, with some European ethnic groups only gaining white status over time. Today, many Americans consider white to encompass a wide range of ancestries and ethnicities, including, now this is where it gets a little muddy for me, European ethnic groups. So Northern and Western Europe. So there would be the English, the German, the Irish, the Scottish, the Dutch, the French, the Scandinavian peoples. We can all say outside of ethnicities and cultures, their skin, yeah, they're white. I mean, they're white as I am. And then it goes to, say, Eastern European ethnic groups. So Eastern and Southern Europe. So that'd be Italian, Polish, Russian, Czech, Greek, and other Slavic peoples. Now, for all intents and purposes, let's just be honest, Italians are not white. They're not. They've always had a darker pigmentation of skin, and I wouldn't say that they're considered white. Others include ethnic Jews, Cajuns, kind of interesting, and many of whom have European ancestry. Now, this is the one that I don't understand. They also include Middle Eastern and North African peoples currently classified as white by the U.S. Census Bureau. Okay, so for all these years, they were including Middle Eastern people as being part of the classification of white. I'm sorry, but I have not met one Middle Eastern that I would say is white. Quite the opposite. And it looks like that the U.S. is going to change this in 2030. They're going to give the Middle Eastern and North African peoples their own designation when it comes to census. But just by reading this, you can see where this is a problem. This is a problem for data and reporting when it comes to everything from poverty to crime to admissions to colleges, like whatever it is. When you go to break this data down, it's including a large populace of people that are not necessarily part of that category. And so that's where the issue is. Now, let's talk about heritage and culture. Like, why is it so bad for white people to want to celebrate their own culture? Why are we told we don't have it? Why are we told that we don't have any common thread whatsoever between us, especially if we're supposedly descended from Europeans? Most European nations have a commonality. They have different cultures for sure. They have different ways of doing things, but pretty similar. For example, let me read a little bit of this off for you. So I'm going to go to this next tab here, and this is what it says here. White people celebrate their heritage through a wide variety of cultural traditions based on their diverse ethnic and national origin. So on the one hand, they're grouping whites together based on allegedly their skin color, but then They throw Middle Easterns in there, and they're saying that white is a social construct. But if we're talking about it being a social construct, how are Middle Eastern people grouped into being white? So ethnic and national celebrations. So we have the German heritage, we got the Irish heritage, the Italian heritage, which again, not necessarily white. You have the Polish heritage, Scandinavian, regional American, blah, blah, blah. So I want to scroll down and read this here because this is important. Distinctions, okay? Distinctions from racial identity. It's important to distinguish between celebrating specific ethnic or national heritage and promoting a broader white identity, which is often tied to racism and white supremacist ideas. So whites don't have an identity. So you can't have an identity. You can't use your skin color as an identity at all. And you can celebrate your ethnicity, but you got to be careful because you can't say that you're white when you're doing so, apparently. I find this very hypocritical because while you can't use white as an identity, the black community uses black as an identity, which makes no sense whatsoever, especially when your skin color apparently has nothing to do with who you are or how you're classified. It's a social construct, remember? And black people have various ethnicities and cultures. I mean, there isn't a black American that was born here, third, fourth generation, fifth generation, whatever, that was born here, basically, an American through and through. American culture, American way of doing things, that can even say they lay claim to their community in Nigeria. Sorry. Or Zimbabwe. No, not going to happen. Completely different cultures, completely different ethnicities. Not going to happen. You're not even in the same ballpark geographically. So just because our skin is white or black or brown doesn't mean we are all the same peoples. And we have a right to celebrate our ethnicities. But when it comes to white people, we can't do so if we say we're white while we're doing it. So let me read something here. While all this talk is going on about white nationalism, Christian nationalism, and how anything that has to do with white people wanting to stand up and celebrate their identity, which we apparently don't have, we're called racists, white supremacists. Now, white nationalists, let's just be honest, there are groups that are literally white nationalists, labeled as white nationalists, that are extremely, they're racist. They're hate groups, period. So we don't want groups like that. We don't want white nationalist groups. We don't want the KKK, right? We don't want skinhead groups. We don't need Nazi groups or neo-Nazi groups. Those are all groups that claim to be white nationalists. Those are hate groups. Very important distinction between a hate group and someone who's white that is proud of their heritage or their ethnicity. Big difference there. One is an extreme ideology, or people that are grouped together that practice an extreme ideology. And the other peoples are just people who are just proud of where they came from and what they have to offer culturally. But we all seem to be grouped into the same line of hate crime or hate thought just because you're celebrating your whiteness. Doesn't make any sense. So what about black nationalism? How is that okay? Because apparently it's wrong to be proud of your nation and proud to be white. But when it comes to black nationalism, it's Negro nationalism. It's an outdated term for black nationalism. So black nationalism, a movement that emphasizes black identity, unity, and self-determination, advocates for Black people to control their own economic, political, and social institutions, often through separatism or the creation of a separate nation. Key figures include Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and historical examples include the Universal Negro Improvement Association and Black Panther Party, or Black Panther Party. Apologies for that. Core principles of Black nationalism. Okay, here we go. Racial solidarity. Okay, so promoting a strong sense of community and unity among Black people based on shared heritage and struggles. Now, what's funny about that to me when it says racial solidarity, when you look up a white nationalist, it'll say that, but in a negative way, basically saying promoting a strong sense of racial superiority instead of a strong sense of community, which I find very interesting. The other core principles of Black nationalism: separatism, so believing that integration into white society will not solve racial problems and advocating for separation to achieve full autonomy. Again, written in a way where it sounds like, oh, that's okay. But when you look up the white nationalism side of things here, it has separatism, but it coins it in a very negative way, as in they're anti-culture. They're anti-immigrant. They are about white supremacy. But when they're trying to define Black nationalism, it's about solving problems, solving racial issues. And they think that they won't be able to solve those issues by integrating because they have to have autonomy and they have to advocate for themselves as a people. They also believe in political autonomy, cultural pride. Black nationalism they can have cultural pride, celebrating and revitalizing Black culture, history, and identity as a source of strength. That's okay. But when you look up a white nationalist and what it stands for, it'll have cultural pride. It doesn't say cultural pride, it says white pride. And it brings up white supremacy as a goal, instead of just being proud of your cultural strength. The other thing I find interesting when they're defining Black nationalism is that they keep saying that they're all about their identity. But I thought that your skin color wasn't your identity as defined previously. So what is it? Is our skin color our identity or not? Is it our culture or our ethnicity? And then when it comes to this Black nationalism, what exactly is the culture? I mean, a Black American has nothing in common with an African American. I mean, I'm talking about an American here actually came from Africa, who has actual cultural ties to Africa. And even that person, that African American, is removed from a person who actually lives every day in Africa. Your culture is going to be based on your geographic location. Now, that African American can absolutely be proud of their heritage and ethnicity in Africa. A Black American who has been so far removed from Africa is an American and can celebrate their American heritage and culture. But a white person can't do any of that. We can't celebrate our American heritage and culture. We can't celebrate our ethnicity if we mention we're white. Come on. If you're Portuguese, if you're from France, look, even the Spanish for some reason are grouped into the category of being white because they have a lighter skin. But even the Spanish are grouped into being white. So it's very convoluted. Like, what are white people supposed to do? Just be ashamed of being white? Like, at every turn, we can't be proud of our culture. We can't be proud of where we came from just because our skin is lighter. Our skin tone, which is not supposed to be our identifier or our identity. Why should you not be proud of your ethnicity and where you come from? Every culture has something to add. Every single culture can add value, can give us something. And there's no reason why. There's no reason why that just because you're white that you can't celebrate your culture, your cultural achievements, where you came from. I'm getting tired of this shit. I'm getting tired of every time you turn around, someone is trying to chastise you for being proud of your heritage just because your skin is white. So, how does that work for a black German, for example? You know, they have black Germans, right? I mean, how does that work? Or can they be proud to be German, or are they not allowed? Or are they just proud to be black? Is a Nigerian supposed to be proud to be Nigerian or just black? It doesn't make sense, right? Same thing with Latinos. Let's think about that. They tend to group every Latin country together, right? And it's like, well, Mexicans can celebrate their Mexican heritage, but can Cubans, which can also be considered Latino, but Cubans have a completely different culture, so do Peruvians. So, do you get what I'm saying here? None of this makes sense. Look, fuck skin color. Okay, let's just stop with the nonsense. Be proud of where you came from. Be proud of your culture. Celebrate it. It's not racist to do so. It's okay to be proud of your heritage and where you came from. It's okay to be proud of your ethnicity. But let's just be realistic, man. Look, if you're an American, you're a fucking American, period. That's all there is to it. Don't try to claim you're an American. You were born here. You're a third generation, fourth generation American. You're not a Mexican. You're not an African. You're not a Spaniard. You're not an Italian. You're not Brazilian or Portuguese. You're an American. You may have roots down the line in your family to these other areas, and you should absolutely learn about your roots and your culture, and you should celebrate it, and you should be able to integrate it into your life. But let's just be very honest with ourselves. You're fucking Americans, period. You got to put America first, and you got to be able to celebrate the fact that you live in America that has a culture all of its own. And that culture does have bits and pieces of many other cultures. But damn it, America does what America does. And it takes all that in and makes it its own. And so stop shaming white people for being proud of their culture and where they come from. And in turn, white people, look, let it go, man. You know who you are. Be proud. Don't hate other colors, which, again, is not an identity, apparently, by definition. It's a social construct, right? But there's no reason to hate a brown person. There's no reason to hate a black person just for their skin color. We all need to move past this. I mean, as a society, as a society and here in America, hell, just as humans on the earth, the fact that we're still doing this, that we're still segregating ourselves, that we're still trying to group ourselves into skin color, right? And that we're being told to be confused about who we are and what we stand for. We got to be smarter than this. We got to think bigger. We got to think logically, and we got to understand that your culture and your ethnicity is not your skin color. Again, we have black Germans. We have black Asians. We have black Mexicans. We have white Asians. How does this come about? Well, people move, people migrate, they start families, and they don't know anything other than the country they're born in. That is now their culture. That is where they came from. Anyway, enough with the BS. Listen, everybody. thank you very much for sitting through all that. I know I fumbled a few words. My mouth was getting dry here. But listen, I need everybody to help me grow the show. Look, I've been doing this for 2 years now, and we've been doing fairly well, but that's only because you guys listen. But you got to start sharing the show. So please like, subscribe, and share the show with others. Go to the website, worldablazepodcast.com. Also, my YouTube channel, World Ablaze. Just look it up. It should come up, World Ablaze with George Fonts. And if you can't find it, just look for this little logo here. You should see it. I'm also on Rumble. And of course, on pretty much all the major social media. So I'm there on X, Instagram, Facebook. I don't mess with too much. I'm on Threads at Fonts Ablaze. So that's at Fonts Ablaze. You'll be able to find me. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.
I wanna taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.